You're going to hear more from him soon. I want him to one Sunday blow our minds. I want him to preach in Spanish, and one of the young men that attends on Friday nights is pretty decent English, pretty decent translator, and I'm going to have him translate to English for us. So it's going to be kind of cool, I think. We'll see. So we're starting a new series today called I Choose. It's all about the choices that we make in life. You realize you make choices every single day. Some of you are making a choice right now. And that choice is, which one's going to get me more comfortable, on the right side or on the left side? See, if I stay on this left side, I'll be asleep here in just a minute. So move over to the right side so that keeps you awake, okay? When we make choices in the morning, how many times am I going to hit the snooze button? What am I going to eat for breakfast? Am I going to be on time for work? Am I going to be late for work? Do I even care if I'm going to be at work? What am I going to eat for lunch? What time is... We make choices every single day. You can't stray from making choices. Well, over the next 4 weeks, today counting, we're going to look at the choices that we make, and we're going to emphasize four big areas. Let me just tell you what next week's going to be. We're going to talk about the choice between surrender and control. How many of you are control freaks? Okay, raise the hand of the person next to you. All of us are control freaks. We're not careful, right? So we're going to talk about that next week. This week, we're going to talk it from a little bit different perspective. And in order to set this up, I need you to understand, Pat and I were talking about it this morning, and she said it in such a perfect way. I wish I'd have wrote it down. Of something she has posted on her refrigerator. It says, I'm paraphrasing it, probably messing it up, that you're one choice away from a totally different life. You agree with that? Look back at your life. You can see those one choice moments. You ever wonder what would have happened if I'd have made a different choice? I think about that sometimes. We may not be here to answer that question, have we made a different choice? But your life, if you think about it, you are the sum total of the choices that you've made in life. Today is a result of the choices you made yesterday. Tomorrow is going to be a result of some of the choices you may make today. You are the sum total of the choices that you've made in your life. So let's set today's scenario up. Let's set today's choices up. I want you to close your eyes for just a second. And I want you to imagine that everyone likes you, that you have the approval of everyone that you know, that they 100% agree with you 100% of the time. Some of you are shaking your heads. Okay, right? Open your eyes. You know that I hope you enjoyed that, because it is never going to happen. It's just not. You cannot please 100% of the people 100% of the time. You can't even please 50% of them 50% of the time. Don't even try. We're going to talk about that here ad nauseum over the next few minutes. All right, close your eyes again. Let's look at it from a different perspective. If you're a Christian this morning, what if you don't care what people think? You don't care what they say about you, and you're so focused in life, you are so focused on pleasing God that that's all that matters, and guess what? He is pleased. Now open your eyes. That's a whole different perspective, isn't it? And guess what? That's one that's attainable. You actually can please God, believe it or not. By the way, we're back on the Bible app, so if you want to open up the Bible app, you can follow along in the notes today on the Bible app. There's also a Bible study plan in there for you to follow up with this. And you've got notes in the back of your bulletin there for you too. But choices drive us. Here's the problem, this idea of choices, and what we're talking about today is this idea of purpose, choosing purpose over popularity. But the problem with us is we tend to drive ourselves towards what's popular. We try to drive our choices towards what makes us feel good and what makes people like us. How many of you worry about whether people like you or not? Oh, yes, you do. And that's okay, but that shouldn't be what drives us. But here's the problem with worrying about whether people like us is all too often we misuse our idea of purpose. We misuse our idea of popularity. Let me tell you what I think. Have you ever tried to use something that, I'm talking to all the guys out there because I know you do this. How many of you read directions? The ladies are laughing and the guys are going, dude, just stop. I'll put this thing together. They put extra parts in it anyway. So Guys, we're terrible at it. We don't understand what the purpose of this thing is, so we misuse this thing trying to figure out this thing. Let me give you an example. I remember as a kid, you may not believe this, but most of you know my dad. You may not believe this, but Dad was actually a pretty good athlete when he was younger. And Dad played softball, the church softball team. And I remember he was a designated hitter. And at least most of the time, Dad could knock the cover off of a softball, which was a good thing because he wasn't all that fast around the bases. But Dad played softball and was pretty athletic, pretty active, believe it or not, when he was about half the size that he wound up being one day. But I remember as a kid once, we lived in West Memphis and had my friends over, and when I say my friends, it was usually friend's little sister had to tag along with us. And I remember little sister walking in, we're probably 8, 9, 10 years old. I remember little sister walking into the living room, and there had been a softball game the night before, so Dad's stuff is kind of laying out. And Dad's athletic cup was sitting on the table, and okay, if you don't know what that is, some of your neighbors are laughing. They know. Just ask them what that is. You know, they're shaped kind of like a heart almost. They're plastic. They're protectors, okay? Ladies, you may not understand this part, but you talk about sheer horror. We're in the dining room, living room area, and friend's little sister walks in and says, "Hey, what's that?" She doesn't know what this thing is, and she picks it up. No, stop, no, leave it alone. You know where this is going. Before you can say a word, say, "Hey, I know what this is. It's an oxygen mask." You just got a little bit sick, didn't you? She just starts breathing like it's an oxygen mask. I didn't tell her any different. Just let her do it. But, you know, she misused the thing because she didn't understand what the thing was for. Don't go Google athletic cup. You probably would get yourself in trouble. But we do the same thing with us because we don't understand this thing. Well, you don't go ask the thing how you use the thing because you don't ever get an answer. But what we do is, if we're not careful, we go ask each other, "Hey, what do you think my purpose in life is?" Well, that's the wrong person to ask because the other thing doesn't know you. Here's what you should do. I'm pretty sure that the athletic cup came with instructions. The thing that you're using probably comes with instructions. So how about instead of asking others to approve what you do, go to the one that created you. Say, "Hey, what is my purpose?" If she knew the purpose of the thing, she probably would still have lungs. But you know, we worry too much about the approval of others instead of asking the Creator what our real purpose is. Now we need to talk about this purpose thing a little bit. What do we mean by purpose? We spend all kinds of time asking others, "Do you approve of this? Do you like this? Do you approve of that? Do you think my car's nice? Do you think that I need a newer car? Do you like my phone? I got the newest one. It's an iPhone 11. It's bigger. It has 3 cameras on the back. It's better than yours. Do you like my clothes? Do you like what I'm wearing? Am I up to date on what I'm wearing? Should I get some bell bottoms? They're kind of coming back in style." We worry about what you think and what you think and what you think and what you think. And it drives us crazy worrying about what others think. Have you ever noticed yourself do that? You do it on Facebook all the time because I read it. I do it, and I don't even think about it. And then we start worrying about things that we shouldn't even worry about. Well, do you like me? Do you agree with me? I mean, I sent you a text like 8.5 seconds ago and you haven't answered me yet. Do you still like me? I see the little bubbles. I know you've read it, but you haven't answered. Do you still like me? Do you still approve of me? We do this, and it drives us crazy. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is not to worry about whether if you like me or if somebody else likes me. Our purpose is to worry about what God has for us. Here's a key point. We're talking about this purpose over popularity. Here's a key point for you. Living for the approval of people keeps you from the purposes of God. You think about that. Living for the approval of people keeps you from the purposes of God because you spend way too much time worrying about what they think and way not enough time concerned with seeking what God thinks and what God's purposes are. Let me give you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about a guy that kind of illustrates this. Now, the story is an Old Testament story, but Paul writes about it, or the Hebrew writer writes about him in what we call the faith chapter in chapter 11. It's Moses. I love Moses. Moses is one of the go-getter guys, but Moses didn't have a whole lot of confidence. That's a whole lot of us, if we think about it. Well, let's kind of put this into context a little bit. Moses was an Egyptian slave, grew up in slavery. Moses had no reason to become who he did. I said Egyptian slave. He was a Hebrew slave boy that lived in an Egyptian household. He was Pharaoh's daughter. He was adopted into their family and raised to find favor with the Pharaoh and was raised that way. Moses could very easily have found comfort in that calling that he grew up in, that comfort in who he had become as Pharaoh's right-hand man. He could very easily have found comfort in that and just left it. We'd never know the story of Moses that we know, but Moses found purpose in his life, and that's what drove him, was that purpose. And the writer of Hebrew talks about it in chapter 11 and verse 24. He says, by faith Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose, there's that key word, he chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt because he was looking ahead to his reward. Moses could have very easily grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, grew up in this life of luxury that so many of us would cherish. So many of us would love to have. But Moses chose not to be that person because he saw the greater reward in following his purpose in God. There's power in that. There's power in our purpose. Now, let's define our purpose here. There's a whole lot of us that spend our life trying to figure out our big purpose, that big capital P purpose in life. Well, what is your big capital P purpose? I'm going to be a missionary in some foreign land. I don't know yet. I'm going to cure cancer. I'm going to be the whatever it is. But we're misdirected in that because we get these big grand plans that if we're not careful, they're our plans. They're not God's plans. Well, let's break it down to a little bit smaller level. Let's look at the little bitty lowercase p purposes. What is your purpose today? What is your purpose in the moment right now? Maybe you're in line at Walmart and there's an elderly couple and he's in a wheelchair and she can't push him, and suddenly you realize God is calling me to help take care of this couple. He's calling me to set aside my time and to help them get out to their car and get their bags in their car. You fulfilled your purpose in that moment. That's not a big capital P purpose. No one's ever going to know about that. But you were honoring God and fulfilling his purpose for you in that moment. Guess what happens when you start answering a whole lot of those little P's? Let's see. When you're faithful in the little things, he starts giving you the big things. You start to realize, hey, I got this thing. I can do this. When God calls me to do something now, I don't have to question it. I can do it. And then before long, you realize there's some middle-sized P's. And then there's the big capital P, overarching purpose for your life starts to reveal itself. You don't have to question it anymore. So there's power in understanding there's purpose. There's power in that. First of all, I want you to see that the power or the purpose, come on technology, purpose diminishes distractions. Some of you are already shaking your head. What happens when you start working in an area, you start doing something that God is calling you to do? Instantly there is distraction. Instantly there is distraction. I start worrying when there's not distraction because I start asking myself, am I doing what I need to be doing? Because no one seems to be worried about it. But when you start doing what your purpose is, when you start doing what God's calling you to do at the moment, all kinds of distractions come into play. And one of those distractions we just saw in that little clip at the beginning. It's this distraction of comparing, of comparison. Well, he makes more money than I do. He can witness more because he can spend more. He has a nicer car than I do. He has a bigger house than I do. I must be a failure because I haven't finished school yet. She finished school in 4 years and I'm on the 11-year plan and still haven't got there. Maybe I'm in my middle 20s and I should have a house already, but they got a house and a really nice yard. Have you seen it? They're even putting in a pool this year. And I don't even have a house and I'm still renting. That must mean I'm a failure. We get into this comparison mode if we're not careful, and it will absolutely destroy you. Because you weren't created to be equal to somebody else. You were created to be you. You weren't created to be in the same mind as someone else. You were created to be who you are. Purpose diminishes that distraction. When you understand what it is that you're doing, none of that matters anymore. There's another story, another character in the Bible. I love this guy. This is one of the guys that's talked about when you talk about leadership and you talk about doing something grand. Nehemiah. You ever read the whole story of Nehemiah? So let me build this for you. Nehemiah was just a guy. And when Jerusalem was destroyed, it killed him. He couldn't stand the fact that the walls were down. Guess what? When you have this righteous indignation, when you have this conviction that something is wrong, that's probably a purpose. That's probably a clue to you that, hey, I need to do something about this. And Nehemiah had this conviction that somebody needs to do something about these walls. Our great city is destroyed. And he said, why shouldn't it be me? I should do something about these walls. So he does. And we know the stories of Nehemiah being a great leader and a motivator, and his skills of getting people together to do their job was incredible. And so Nehemiah's on the wall. He's up on the ladder and he's placing bricks. And it tells us in about chapter 4 or so that these two guys, can't remember their names, doesn't matter, Sanballat and Tobiah, I think is the other guy's name. But anyway, these two guys, they come and they start hurling insults. They start telling Nehemiah, dude, your work is pointless. Your work is worthless. Your work means nothing. You just might as well stop. And I love what Nehemiah says. He basically is telling them, get away. He says, listen, I got time for what you're saying. Don't you understand? I am doing what God is telling me to do. I ain't got time for you. I ain't got time for that distraction. I'm doing a great work. I can't come down there, is what Nehemiah says. I'm doing a great work. Problem is, some of us feel like our work is so minuscule that it can't possibly be great. But you're doing a great work. You ain't got time for that. I'm doing a great work. I can't come down. You know what one of the biggest discouragement as pastors is? That we do it to ourselves. Our organization does it to us. Is that comparison. Well, I only had 52 in worship service this morning. That church across town had 400. I guess we're failures. We only raised this much money. That church raised this much money. Have you seen the new facility that church built? And here we are in a gym. We must be failures. No, you're not. You're doing a great work where God has called you to work. You're doing a great work. Don't let the distractions get you. Don't let the comparisons bring you down. Don't let the people, the naysayers, the arguments, don't let those people tell you that you're wrong because you're doing a great work. Some of you need to hear that this morning because you feel like you're nothing. You feel like you don't matter. You feel like what you do, no matter how big it is or how little it is not even noticed. You know, some of the greatest ministries in the church no one knows about. Some of the people that make phone calls and send cards and encourage people, even if it's just a text message. I know there's people that's what they do. When someone else won't, they will. And there's an encouragement to other people. That's a bigger work sometimes than the ones that are doing the upfront stuff that everybody sees. You're doing a great work. Don't let somebody tell you that it doesn't matter, because it does. You got time for that. It's a conviction to you. It's your purpose. I mean, I don't know, maybe you're trying to get out of debt. That's your purpose right now, is to try to get out of debt, not to try, but to do. To get out of debt, and you bring your lunch bag, the little brown paper bag to work, and everybody picks on you, and they're going out to eat sushi for lunch. That's probably a reason you brought your brown paper bag. They're going out to get a good burger or some pizza or whatever for lunch, and you got your brown paper bag with your ham and cheese sandwich. You're doing a good thing. You're doing a good work. Don't let the distractions diminish you, because the reward of being debt-free is way greater than that pizza for lunch. I don't know, maybe you're we won't go for that one. Maybe you're being convicted to be a stay-at-home parent. And the world's saying, well, you have a degree. You could go make a whole lot of money doing something and support your family. But you know what? That little one doesn't care. That little one doesn't know that you can make a lot of money. That little one doesn't care if you don't bring home a red penny. They want you. You're doing a good thing. You're following your purpose. Don't let anyone distract you from doing your purpose. Purpose diminishes the distractions. Every time. Here's the second thing. Purpose pushes you through the pain. Sometimes the pathway to your purpose is through the pain. You can look all through the Bible. Nehemiah is an example. Moses is an example. We've already talked about those two. David, Esther, Mary, even Jesus are examples of pushing through the pain because of their purpose. Paul pushed through the pain because of his purpose. Peter pushed through the pain because of his purpose. I'll tell you one that failed because of his pain. See, there was a 12th one that sat at the table, and his purpose was a flawed purpose. And he couldn't stand the pain. What was his name? Oh yeah, Judas. Your purpose will destroy you if you don't, or your pain will destroy you if you're not careful. But your purpose will push you through the pain. Doing what God calls you to do, trust me, people aren't going to like it. People aren't going to understand it. People are going to ridicule you. People are going to call you names. People are going to cause you pain. But your purpose pushes you through that. Your purpose pushes you through all of that. Women, you blow my mind sometimes. I'm just going to tell you why. I know it's natural, but there is nothing to me natural about giving birth. Brady was backwards. He's kind of straightened up now, but he came into the world backwards. And so the doctors tried to fix it and turn him around, but we still had to have him cesarean. And that in itself is a whole nother crazy thing. But when it was Preston's turn, Christina wanted to have him natural. And you had nothing to do with it, so don't be back there doing this. Christina wanted to have him natural. I thought that was the craziest thing in the world. You already you're weakened because of scars, and that just sounds unbelievably painful to me to have this kid natural. Any kid, not just that one, as big-headed as he was, any kid having a kid natural, that just seems, I have never tried to fit a watermelon through a garden hose, but that's what it seems like to me. Okay, help me out here. You know what I'm saying. Ask most any mother what their choice would be, and they'll say, I want to have my baby natural. Why? Because some of you are shaking your head. Because there's a closeness to this child because you experienced that. There's a pain involved with this child that brings you to this, but the reward is much greater than the pain that you're dealing with. The reward of having that baby. And I don't care how hardened you are. I don't care how tough guy you are. Guys, admit it. The first time you held your baby, you were a babbling idiot. I was. And then we had 3 more. But anyway, the reward is worth it. The reward is greater than the pain. The reward overcomes the pain. It's the same thing when we have a purpose in God, when we have a direction that He's calling us to go. How do the critics, what do they say? How do you handle them? You won't care what people say because your purpose overweighs what they say. Nothing is going to be easy, but your purpose pushes you through it. When God calls, He generally doesn't ask us to do simple things. He generally asks us to do something that pushes our faith a little bit. The naysayers will say, you can't do that. And you know what? They're right. You can't. But He can through you. You can with Him. And when He calls you, people ridicule you. People say it's impossible. You start to do something and then you quit. Boy, have you noticed that? We start a lot of things and then we stop because it got hard. But your purpose will push you through the pain of it being hard. Critics can't stop you. Obstacles can't slow you down or deter you. The pain won't slow you. It won't stop you. You'll find yourself driven. You'll get up earlier. You'll stay up later. You'll work harder. Your purpose becomes what drives you. And it'll push you through the pain of the perceived problems. The world will say you can't. But you can say with Christ, I can. The world will say you won't, but you can say with Christ, I will. Your purpose will push you through the doubts and push you through the pain. Here's the third one. Purpose empowers you to please God. Purpose empowers you to please God. Look back to Moses. When Pharaoh tried to stop Moses, Pharaoh didn't want Moses to do the things that he did. He didn't want Moses to leave him. He was entrusted, but Moses trusted God. Moses went ahead and did it anyway. Moses faced the complaining and the criticizing and the rebellion even from his people. his own people that he's leading to freedom, but he stayed the course. Moses stayed on tack because his purpose wasn't about them. His purpose was to please God. And his purpose empowered him to do that. He saw through the distractions. He saw through the pain, and he saw it to a point where he could please the one that called him to do it. Your purpose empowers you to please God. Fast forward to the New Testament, the apostles, Peter, these guys had it rough. You think you had it rough? They tried to kill them. People, the religious leaders of the day said, you can't preach in that name. Stop it. You can't claim that name. What name are they talking about? It's funny because here we are 2,000 years later and we still have this same problem. Have you ever noticed that? Watch the media, watch The View, oops, I called one out. Watch these shows on TV. It's okay to talk about God. It's okay to talk about your higher power. That term drives me nuts. It's okay to talk about your supreme being. It's okay to talk about being spiritual, but don't you dare mention that name. You know what name I'm talking about, don't you? The name that is above all other name. The name is the name that will set you free. The name that is the only name that went to a cross to die for you and me, the name of Jesus. You mention the name of Jesus, people freak out. Don't preach in that name. But you know what they did? They said, we can't help it. We have to preach in that name. Have you seen the things that name has done for us? Have you seen the fish that we caught? You threw us in jail and an angel showed up to bust us out. How did that work out for you? All because of that name. You can't tell us not to preach in that name because we have a purpose in that name that is greater than you, and my purpose is to please him. If you're there, watch out, world. We're getting into the book of Acts. It talks about this just a few chapters into Acts. Acts chapter 5, this is in your notes, I think. It says, Peter and the other apostles replied, we must obey God rather than human beings. Wow. Can you imagine being that bold in your reaction to the critics? Can you imagine being that bold in your reaction to the people that tell you you're stupid because of what you're doing in his name? I can't help but do it in his name. I would rather do it in his name than in your name. Because I'm not here to please you, I'm here to please him. I had to do that silly little exercise at the beginning. You cannot please everyone. Don't even try. What's the first thing that happens when you realize you've not pleased somebody? You start to doubt yourself. You start to question who you are. You start to question what you're even doing. You start to ask these insane questions about what your purpose is, about what I'm even trying to do here. And the enemy is winning because he backs you away from your purpose. He backs you away from what you've been called to do. You cannot please everyone. Stop trying. But do you know you can please one? You can please God. You need to understand that. You can please God. How do you do that? That couple at Walmart, when you didn't turn your back on them and you helped them get to the car and you fulfilled your purpose in that moment, that pleased God. When you when you set yourself to the side and you take upon your cross and you follow him all the days of your life and you do what he calls you to do and not what the world calls you to do, you're pleasing God. When you allow the Holy Spirit to take over and direct you and lead you and guide you, you're pleasing God. When you meet your little p purposes, you're pleasing God. And he'll tell you so. Do you know how I know we can't please people? One, we do it every day. I see it every day. I let people down every day. People let me down every day. You let people down every day. People let you down every day. It's just a reality. Jesus didn't please everyone. In fact, there's very few people that Jesus did please. He sure stepped on a lot of toes, though. He sure made a lot of people unpleasant. Sure made a lot of people unhappy. You know why? Because his purpose pushed him through all that. His purpose empowered him not to please people, but to provide a way for people. His purpose empowered him to please his Father. Your purpose empowers you to please God. Go back to Moses. Go back to that verse. Moses is verse 26. Moses regarded disgrace. Back up. Moses regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt because he was looking forward to his reward. Moses knew what was in store for him, so he didn't care what people had to say. There was greater value in pleasing God than there was value in pleasing others. Don't get me wrong. There's value in being liked by people. There's absolutely value in being liked by people. But there's greater value by being loved by God. Sure, there's value in having fun with friends and enjoying yourself, but there's greater value in being faithful to God. Yeah, there's value in starting something important, but there's greater value in finishing it. There's value in being comfortable. There's value in who you are and being comfortable in who you are, but there's greater value in answering your calling, whatever that may be, and not just being comfortable. There's value in being popular. People listen to you when you're popular. There's value in being popular, but there's greater value in serving God's purpose over the popularity. You get what I'm saying? I mean, let's make it practical. Maybe you're raising kids and you're up to your neck in diapers. That's not a whole lot of us in here. One smiles. You deal with the lowercase p all day. And you wonder, what is the point in this? When is this ever going to end? There is greater value in seeing this to the end because you're raising a child of God. There's value in that purpose. Maybe you're getting out of debt. Like I said earlier, you sacrifice every day. People ridicule you because you can't go out to the fancy restaurants. You can't do this. You can't do that. But you're looking forward to that reward one day of being able to do those things and not having that debt laying over you. Maybe you're fostering a child. That's one of the greatest gifts ever, is to foster a child, but it's also one of the hardest things ever. The pain of dealing with it is almost overwhelming sometimes, but there's a reward. You push through that pain because of the reward of seeing this child grow and no one else loved them. You're living for Jesus, and the world wonders why. Your friends think you're stupid for it. Your friends don't understand why you won't go out and drink with them on Friday night. They don't understand why you won't go gambling. They don't understand why you won't do these things. But people laugh. They don't understand you can't please everybody, but you can please God. So I just challenge you this morning to remember you are the sum total of the choices that you make in life. We can't do anything about some of the choices that we've made. Not a thing. There's repercussions for choices that we've made in the past. We wish we could change some of the choices that we made. We can't. You just can't. But you can choose today to start making the right choices. You can choose today to stop choosing the popular opinion. You can choose today to stop worrying about what people think. And you can choose today to follow what God has for your life. You can choose today to be overwhelmed and totally immersed in His purpose for you today. I challenge you, choose purpose over popularity. Choose the purpose over the popularity. There's power in that purpose. It'll allow you to do some things. It's going to eliminate the distractions in life. When you focus on that purpose, eliminate the distractions. It'll allow you to push through the pain. It empowers you to do that. It empowers you to please God. I don't know of any other thing in life that's more important than pleasing God. I just don't. Remember, you can't please everybody, but you sure can please Him. Matter of fact, repeat that. You can't please say that with me. I can't please everybody, but I can please God. If you don't get anything else today, I want you to understand that. You can't please everybody, but you can please God. Quit trying to please everybody. Quit trying to make everybody else happy. Quit trying to be everything that everybody else wants you to be, and be who God wants you to be. Uncle Sam coined that phrase, be all you can be. We don't need that anymore. Be all God wants you to be. Starts with choosing His purpose in your life over just being popular. Stand with me. There's some questions there at the bottom of your notes. Fill in the blanks. I want you to take some time to actually think about these things. Fill out those 4 things. What's your purpose? What do you see as your purpose? What do you see as your distractions? What's your greatest pain in all of that? And what are you going to choose? In order to choose purpose, what are you willing to do? Ask yourself that. Stay on top of it. Go into the app and do this Bible study. It's a 12-day study. Go in and do it. We're going to spend 4 weeks talking about these choices, but I truly believe for this body of believers to change, for us to become what I believe God wants us to become, it's essential that we learn how to make right choices. It's essential that we learn to put our trust in the right thing and not the wrong thing. And I'm not saying that people are all purposely putting their choices in the wrong thing, but I think for too long we've just been comfortable with life. And I think it's time to get over it. Come this evening. Come this evening, and Tim's going to lead in some specific prayer things. Come this evening with a heart to learn how to make the right choice. Come this evening with a heart for God to change you. Come this evening for a heart to allow Him to give us His purpose. Come this evening even if you don't expect, even if you don't understand, and allow Him to do something amazing. But ask yourself, what is my purpose? What is my distraction? What is it that gives me pain in this? What am I willing to do in order to choose God's purpose? Bow your heads. We don't want any music. Bow your heads, close your eyes. I don't want anybody looking around. I don't want to embarrass anybody. I wonder how many of you would be willing to admit to me, and yes, Pastor Tim too, I wonder how many of you would be willing to admit, just by raising your hand, I'm not real sure what my purpose is. That's fair. That's an honest first step. If you raised your hand, how many of you would be willing to say, but Pastor, I want to trust in God to allow Him to show me what my purpose is? Would you be willing to raise your hand for that? I'm going to pray for you. I want to pray that God would pour Himself into you. But even more so than that, I'm going to pray that you would be a willing and receiving vessel for that. And would put the blinders on to what the rest of the world has. And just dive in and allow Him to be who He wants to be in your life. Father, we love You today. Lord, I really believe that as a body we desire to do what You want us to do. I really believe that. I really believe that individually people are striving to do what You want them to do. But we do live in a world that makes it awful difficult. Father, I just pray that as we begin to be more focused on what Your purpose for us is, may we make the right choices. As we learn about some more of those choices over the next 3 weeks, may You give us the conviction to choose You over anything else. Give us the conviction to choose Your purpose over anything else that tells us that it's the right thing. Choose Your purpose over popularity. Father, I know You're going to honor that. I know you're going to do some amazing things when Your people trust in You. When Your people get on their knees and they seek You first instead of hoping You can fix it later. Father, I just ask for Your blessing. I ask for Your direction. I pray for these that have raised their hands and have admitted, I don't know what my purpose is. Father, speak to them. Give them some little purposes. Show them that they can be faithful in the small things before You reveal what You have for them. Maybe that's what they need. Maybe it's baby steps before they get to big steps. But Father, I pray that You would speak to them. I pray that You would show them encouragement, that You would show them the reality of who You are and who You want to be in their life. Give them the ability to just give it all to You. Father, we thank You for these words. Thank You for this message. I pray right now for Tim as he prepares to lead tonight. I pray for each one that's going to be here tonight that You would open our hearts and prepare our hearts already before we even get into a prayer room, into an attitude of prayer with You. Father, would You begin to work on us already? It's in Your grace and Your peace that I ask all these things. All the people said, amen.